Hey, what's up everybody? It's Lids, and we're back for some more Gwent, and today we're playing more of the Patience is a Virtue seasonal event, which is an alternate game mode in which every turn our cards get transformed into random cards that cost one more provision. That makes it really difficult to consistently have a strong deck, unless you're using something like this. So let's go give it a look. So today we'll be playing a Northern Realms Pincer Maneuver deck because this is one of the few ways that you can play a card from your starting deck before it gets transformed into something random from this event. For that reason, we threw in King Radovid to give us additional Pincer Maneuver charges for additional consistency. Other than that, we can take out Margarita if our opponent has something really important that we want to lock, but for the most part, what we are trying to save those Pincer Maneuver charges for is, at the end of round 3, on our second to last turn, we can play Erland of Larvik for a big finisher because we have more units than you would usually have in our starting deck. That way, we get a little bit more of a boost from Erland. This is not as much of a dedicated Erland deck as we've used in past Patience is a Virtue events, so still a decent finisher with 31 units in our starting deck, but not a guaranteed win condition in and of itself. That is because this time round, we are trying out Melitele. This is a card that we would like to, rather than get into our hand to play, we want to get it into our hand to mulligan it back into our deck using our Pincer Maneuver charges. That way we can either boost our units on the board, spawn a Northern Realms unit on one of our rows, or just give a boost to Melitele herself, which may mean, if she gets big enough, that we could even consider using one of our charges to play her at the end of the match. But for the most part, at least in round 1 and round 2, we are trying to put her back into our deck rather than playing her directly, because she is one of the few cards that actually does give you points when she gets mulliganed rather than gets played. So that is one of the other ways that we can get value from cards that are hanging out in our deck or getting put back into our deck rather than playing the cards directly in our hand, which again is difficult to do in this event because cards are getting randomized so quickly. But with our leader ability and with Radovid to give us additional leader ability charges, we get just enough consistency to outperform our opponents while still holding on to some finishers with things like Erland and long-term value for Melitele and possibly using her as a finisher as well in round 3. Other than that, it's about playing whatever the best random card happens to show up in your hand. So let's go see it in action. Alright, so going up against monsters here. And they'll go first. Okay, and a few cards that we want to mulligan out here. Notably, Roach. Definitely want to get rid of that. But we cannot really afford to have Erland in hand. Would have liked to have dumped Istredd and possibly Margarita as well, but I want to get rid of you. Alright, they'll start with the Self-Eater, which is an engine if they can build around it, but that's hard to do in this event. And they do technically have one guaranteed way to do it with their leader ability. We could outright remove it with Serpent Trap. We can even immediately trigger this and take it out. Otherwise, long-term Griffin Witcher might be worth a little more points. Not actually that concerned about this. I think Griffin Witcher might be the direction we go in here. Would also justify going Serpent Trap and just not flipping it. The tricky thing with that is, in this event, there are generally a lot more units than there are special cards, so, I mean, now they're probably about to play a special card, but there's a decent chance that your opponent just never plays a special card. Yes, and granted, they immediately play a special card. Fair enough. Now we probably go Intriga Larva is a decent engine early on in the round. And there is Best Boy. Okay, they go Prophet Lebioda. It's actually not a bad play. I think we might even go with Axel Three Eyes here. He has recently been reworked, and he is now better than he used to be, I think. If we go melee row and get the Crow Eye Rhizome played in the same row as him, then that's an 11, isn't it? For 7 provisions, that is pretty solid value. Otherwise, as for Radovid, gives us a defender, which it's not a ton of points directly, but it does give us some extra utility. We'll go for the pure points here, though. Gets Roach out as well. Okay, now do they actually have a relic to power these up? Ethereal, you'd think it might be, but actually that does work. I mean, it's not really the Self-Eater synergy. It's not really the Self-Eater synergy anymore, but it works with Ethereal at least. Okay, so we could, let's see. I like Doedric, especially if we can use that to help set up Melitele, which is not guaranteed, but is potentially something that may end up happening. And he's 8 points, which is still not bad. Scoundrel, potentially worth a little bit more, but we don't know definitively if we're going to be able to get enough coins to deal damage to whatever we end up summoning out. And then Hailstorm actually is not terrible either. They have enough cards that I think we could hit everything and at least temporarily slow down Ethereal there. So that's actually might be worth considering. But I think Doedric, it's a little bit riskier. But I think the high-end potential might make it worth it. Alright, they will use Ethereal once again. Now it's Olgierd. Solid play. Now we're going to use Doedric, and we're going to see if we can draw into something that we actually want to play, because if we do that, then we can put Roach back into our deck, and then that's potentially 4 free points, which would be kind of nice, but let's see what we get here. Okay, well, it is the card that I wanted in some ways, because no, we're not going to put Roach back into our deck, but putting Melitele into our deck does help. So, I mean, we could go with Leader ability to get a different card out and put Roach into our deck. You know what? Maybe we'll do that. Let's go... That's a decent excuse to play Radovid here. Put Roach back. Use Radovid. Will give us a refund of that charge. There is the Roach that we just put back into our deck. And we'd, of course, love if we could also get the Order ability on that Radovid as well, but even if we can't, it's still pretty solid value. Okay, Tin Boy, we have a very wide melee row. That's going to hurt a lot. Wow, that was big. That was pretty huge. We had a lot of points, but many of those points were coming from us having a bunch of weak units in that melee row, so that was painful, for sure. Vigo's Muzzle is 8 points on any of their 4s. We'd probably use it on Ethereal. Boholt is our highest provision cost card here at 12, as is the King of Beggars, but can't really set them up all that much right now. At the very least, we'll do this. Let's see what we get with Doedric first. Okay, well, that's not really a card we particularly want to play. What we could do is put back King of Beggars, because he does potentially give us some value in our deck. He was another high provision cost card, which I'm not even sure we're going to play Boholt here, so there was a risk he was going to brick. I think we'll just go to Synthesis Blaze here. Although, now we don't have anything that's going to trigger our Thrive here. So, that's not really a factor. Okay, it's Jacques. Not bad. At this point, they are likely in a similar situation where many of their cards are becoming very high provisions and either are low value scenarios or might have looped all the way back around to 4 provision cost cards. But we have the extra value of Doedric giving us some flexibility, and of course our leader ability as well. So let's start with Doedric and see what happens. Okay. You are a soldier, which means Emir suddenly becomes much better. So I think what we do here is we put one of you two back. You're an 11, you're also an 11, so it's, I guess, either one of you, really. Put you back. Play Emir. And with him, we can play you. And then this is not terrible. It's a 4 provision cost card, but because we have so many, or had so many high provision cost cards, that was a bit of a risk. That things were going to all turn into bricks. Okay, She Who Knows, that is very unfortunate for us, because that is just about as good as it could get for them at this stage. Does mean we put spying on She Who Knows, which might become a factor later on. Don't really have anything that benefits from the profit here. Mamuna? What do we have in our graveyard? It's not really gonna do much. Yeah. It's not really... I mean, it might actually be the best option here. In fact, it definitely is the best option here. Unless we can get something better out of Doedric. Which I don't really think is the case here. Although, do we prefer putting that back? Or, yeah, we'll put this back. It's a lower provision cost card. We'll go Momuna. We'll use it to do that. And then put the boost on... Is there anyone who really matters here? Not that much. Not that much. We retake the lead, though. That's what matters. Okay, Svalblood. We have a bit of armor, but they have some shields. They did not have room to spawn in a Bear Abomination in the melee row there, so I guess they wanted the extra shield. They missed out on the extra value. So, it was not nearly as bad as it could have been. We have 8 points from Profit, or actually 10 points. Once you factor in, we're going to get a couple of boosts on our Endrega Larvae, so that's not terrible. That should be enough for us to retake the lead once again. Roderick. We did add Siggy to our deck, who is a gold, and King of Beggars, who are both gold, so we don't really care that much about. So there is a chance that that bricks a bit. So I think we might just go for Profit here. Or, well, first, try this. Huh. 1, 2, 3, 4. Makes you an 8. Okay, well, it's pretty similar either way, I suppose. You are a lower provision card, though. So tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to put Roderick back in. I'm going to do this. Same results, but better long-term potential. Granted, the RNG may not have worked out in our favor there. Alright, they're going to Heat Wave our card we just played, which was 8 power. Which means we need 8 here. Also, bear in mind they are getting the carryover from She Who Knows here. Last Wish, top 2 cards. We obviously have no idea what those top 2 cards are going to be. Could Leader ability and get at least a Northern Realms card here, but even then, I'm not sure we're going to find anything that gives us the tempo we would need to catch them right now. Redanian Elite is a 7. Boost both of you. Oh, and we get the... Actually, we get the additional points from Pincer Maneuver, giving us a 2-point unit on the board, so I think that is probably still sufficient. Because you will boost the Endrega Larvae as well. So I think that is good enough. Do this, just put you back in case it happens to be Melitele. It's not. Okay, so we pass them. Which is important, because they're going to get carryover going into the next round. Okay, so now we're going to get low provision cost cards. However, because we won round 1, we can just dry pass here and not have to worry about it too much. They're probably going to dry pass as well. It's actually Svalblood that stayed on the board here. Not that that makes a huge difference. So, I mean, we could get ambitious and try to mulligan one of these out. Just want to make sure that it doesn't, you know, turn into an Erland or a Melitele, in which case we need to mulligan again. But Blue Stripes Commando basically just gives a slightly stronger starting point there with 5 provisions. That is a card that maybe could have given us some value staying in our deck, but pretty unlikely for that to be the case. So basically, these are going to evolve until they should be in a decent starting place once round 3 rolls around. So we're just going to try pass here. They don't need to play anything because they have that Svalblood that carried over. So they'll win round 2. Alright, and here is Melitele, who we can mulligan out and get a little bit of extra setup on her from that. And we could mulligan again, but we run the risk of potentially getting Erland. Now, this is not necessarily a full-blown dedicated to Erland deck, so we don't have that many units in our deck right now. We did also put the Last Wish back into our deck previously, so there's at least one card in there that is not a unit. So it's not perfect by any means, but it's probably still reason enough not to use that last mulligan. Alright, it's Black Blood, which does not directly give points. But it does certainly limit the extent to which we can benefit from boosts. So we did not have great cards out here to start off with. I was thinking maybe Roland or Tatterwing just for the higher base power, or if they played something small enough, Cyprian Wiley. We could, however, justify going for the Doppler. Basically, the idea there is just use this as bait to cancel out Black Blood, because this was not going to be that big of a turn anyway. so we'll just play that turn even. Okay, Old Spear Tip is huge. However, it is still the smallest card on the board, which means Blizzard does work on it. So we will definitely do that, because that is fantastic value. Okay, it's Redea. I assume they don't have duplicates. I mean, they may, and it's just... Okay, they do. Still an 8-point body, so it's certainly not bad. And obviously, they also have their 9-point leader ability as well. Do we have enough time for Ciri? I always forget exactly. They reworked the way that timers worked a while back and made it sound like they got stronger, which always makes me think in this situation that Ciri works, but I'm pretty sure she still doesn't. Guess there's a chance we see something like Mata. I can't really bet on anything like that. It is our highest provision cost card, so if we don't play her, she's at the greatest risk of getting bricked, but unlikely we'll be able to set her up. All right, we'll take our risk on Ciri. Okay, and it's Free Company, which is not a huge play, because they don't have any bandits. Speaking of bandits, Olgierd is 8 points, which is not bad. Not bad. Think that I mean, this is technically also 8 points. You're 10 provisions, you're 8 provisions. Mata is 9. If we are thinking maybe it'd be fantastic to get Mata to give ourselves an actual chance of getting Ciri here, that'd be nice. So, keep both our 8 provision cost cards. Go for Regis Bloodlust. Obviously not going to get the death blow, but so be it. Alright, no Mata, unfortunately. Which means this next turn is probably going to have to be Erland. Kira would have been decent value earlier on in the round, but not going to have enough time for her vitality to really kick in here. And then Ragnarok also not really going to have enough time to get the full value out of that, even if earlier on in the round, both of these would have been half decent. So, as I said, it is probably going to be Erland here. I mean, Melitele was probably going to be the last card, although that is not all that great at the moment. We did not get as many mulligans to set that up as we would have liked. So, I think we will still Erland here, yes. And we'll probably put Kira back, since she is a unit, so that does help us a little bit. Yeah, a little bit concerned about treason. There was no safe place to play it, to play Erland, where he'd be immune to that unless we put him here, which would have meant that the Cat School Witcher could have got him. Okay. So, Crimson Curse, another card that is great in a long round, not so great in this short of a round. We still have the boost from Erland. The question is it even worth going for Melitele here? She's basically, what, a 9? Or can be an 8 once we use the order ability on Erland, but that might still be good enough. Let's just see where this leaves us. Okay, should be good enough, yes, because at this point, our leader ability alone is going to give us 2 points. So just about anything would do. As I said, I don't think we technically have enough time for Ciri. Yeah, she gives us the card draw, but our round had technically already ended. Doesn't matter. Either way, we will still take the win. Alright, so going up against Nilfgaard here. And they'll go first. Alright, so unfortunately, a bunch of cards in here that we would like to mulligan out. Otherwise, they will transform into something entirely different. Definitely want to get rid of Erland. Oh, why? Why did you give us Radovid? Okay, well, that's another card that we really want to keep in our deck. I think we absolutely need to mulligan Radovid here. That means we're going to have to brick Roach, Margarita, and Istredd. Roach would have been really nice. Margarita and Istredd are luxuries, but not necessities, but Radovid really does need to stay. Alright, they're going to start with Imperial Diviner. Well, I'll tell you what, that is almost certainly what we are going to start with as well, because Assimilate in this event is incredible. It is basically 1 point per turn, and at 5 provisions, that is really solid value. So, yeah, I think that's what we're going to have to take here. One good thing, if you want to call it that, looking at the silver lining of us having bricked, or at least had a few cards in our starting hand that we would have liked to have kept in our deck, is that now rather than having a bunch of just low provision cost cards here to lead off the round, we have some bigger stuff, like using Foltest to create multiple Imperial Diviners is a pretty incredible prospect. Some carryover potential from Ronvid is not a terrible idea. It's probably too early for Guillaume to be that useful. Attorney Shalmar, melee row to actually destroy their diviner. It's not a terrible idea either. This is one additional point per turn for us, and also gives us an easy way to get more of these diviners in our deck, and that means more setup for Erland going forward, which is nice. But this shuts down their engine. Yeah, these are all very nice plays. I think we go for Foltest, though, in part also because he is the, I believe, highest provision cost card of all the cards we were looking at there, which meant that if we didn't play him, he was going to brick the most quickly. They're going to go Hefty Helga, though, which they will probably use to mess with us. I also didn't even see what numbers they're Enslave. It's 8. Okay. So they have a lot of cards in their deck. That means a lot of low provision cards. So in a short round 3, we might be able to mess with them a little bit there. Granted, that is also potentially one of our weaknesses. But they could swipe, and may even be planning on swiping one of these in the near future. Could use Treason to take out Roach and damage Marlene, but that's really not that good. Really wish we could have used it to get rid of you. Surrender. Not quite enough cards for that to be worth our while, I don't think. Selkirk melee row does kind of demand an answer at the very least. That would probably get the Helga attention. Sire, no, we don't have anything in our graveyard yet. Yeah, I think it might end up being Selkirk. I very much imagine that he will get answered, but it is at least distracting them and forcing them to answer him, because if they don't, then he's going to be powerful, and that means hopefully more time for Foltest and Imperial Diviner to do their thing, because yeah, Helga's going to go after Selkirk. They could still use leader ability on that Diviner, so I'm very curious to see if they choose to go that route. They'll go Ard Geth, which is actually quite solid early on in the round. And does also mean that the Diviner will stay very much in Enslave range, even when we take this turn here. Unless we go Bribery into some... I mean, they might have Assimilate cards in their starting deck. It's unlikely because it's going to be almost entirely Tactics. Well, that means the units in their deck are going to be pretty high value. Otherwise, I was going to say Doedric, because we can get decent value on the body and also potentially set up Melitele or just other cards from our starting deck. I mean, that does have a counter synergy with the Diviner, but a positive synergy with almost everything else. Maybe it is Bribery then. You don't have Assimilate anymore, I'm afraid. That's actually not a terrible option. We do not have Sirinova. We do not have the setup for Sirinova, that is. Okay. This Ignatius has been reworked, and he is one of the best cards in this event. I previously thought that because he's basically a bounty card that damages himself and only heals up when you destroy cards with the bounty, I thought that meant that he was just going to basically damage himself significantly if you did not use any bounty in this event, but no, he just never damages himself. So he is an amazing 18. They did play that Sirinova that we saw. We knew that they had that, because we saw it when we went with the Bribery, but could steal it with the Envo if we really wanted to deny them the carryover. That's worth less points in this round. It does obviously get rid of the Resilience, though. This is very much still the highest tempo play for this round. I think we might be trying to play to win this round on even, and that way, even if they have the carryover with Sirinova, we'll just dry pass. They'll dry pass, and we'll still be on even cards going into round 3. I think that's probably the plan. Should get us up to Sabbath here as well, which may be a factor going forward. Alright, they'll pass. So we are currently winning on even, which means we could pass, we could dry pass in the next round, and they could dry pass as well, and we'd be on even cards going into round 3. I really wish they played one more card, because then we had the perfect counter to take out Siri Nova. We could still do this and get rid of their resilience. Then we really wouldn't... I mean, we technically have a throwaway card each if we don't play anything here. Not really sure we can do much with that when they have resilience, and we don't unless we are 9 is sort of the resilience number. Do we have anything that's going to be 9 at the beginning of the next round? No. I think we still just pass here and don't really look to do much of anything in round 2. If that round went 1 turn longer, would have been amazing. Could have taken out Siri Nova, but not quite. Alright, we do draw into Melitele, which means we can mulligan her out and get a little bit of carrier value of sorts from that. No, we are not going to have the Saskia commander criteria to set her up. We do have a throwaway. Garrison actually does have a little bit of resilience, although that is gonna transform, so we shouldn't really read into that at all. Let's go put... Well, we shouldn't mulligan. So we could find ourselves accidentally drawing into Erland and not being able to mulligan him back out, or Radovid for that matter. So yeah, we should leave it at this. There is the Melitele. Okay, so is there anything meaningful that we can do here that gives us carryover value is basically the question, because we do have a throwaway. They have that 8-point advantage, so very unlikely that we would be trying to push here. We do have some reasonably valuable cards. I mean, first turn Hemdall is not great, even if he would be good early on. Raging Bears, actually, might be better still, or, well, it's 1 fewer pointer, actually the same amount of points because she is a shield, but it's 5 provisions versus 12 provisions. I think we might actually do this, though. I think we might actually prefer this, though. Well, okay, ready? This is not as... This we'd like to play because this is going to turn into a brick pretty soon. This we'd like to play because if we get a Fukusia later on, it's a nice Skellige card for us to target. I'm going to go for that. So, reasons why you could justify either of them. That is the only card we're going to play in this round because that was our 1 throwaway. They're going to go Tibor, which means we suddenly do have... Oh, what the heck? No. Okay. Oh, okay. Fortunately, our cards have already evolved. They've already transformed. I was going to say, if you got a random Tibor forcing us to draw into Melitele, and meaning that we were going to have Melitele transform and brick that, I would have been a little frustrated. About that, but fortunately, you have basically just given us a free opportunity to put Melitele back into our... Well, granted, we would have to use a lead ability charge to put her back into our deck, but I think that's what this is going to turn into, then. Do you have anything else we'd like to play here? We're going to have to do this. Part of me wants to go with Radovid. However, I think we just take something that we don't really foresee us ever wanting to play, and then using something from our hand here. Shouldn't really matter much what it is, because that is now going to be the last card that we play. Again, we're not really trying to compete in this round. They, technically speaking, did help us getting Melitele in hand. I mean, granted, we had to get rid of it with our leader ability, but we can still use this charge to get Radovid. Okay, they're gonna keep on playing some stuffs at least. But yeah, this is where we pass. We actually, yeah, that was, come to think of it, incredibly silly going with that Tibor, because now, I mean, they'd lost round 1, so they have to win this round, and they gave us an extra card. We can now pass and have card advantage going into round 3. So, yeah, they basically handed us card advantage in round 3 with Tibor. So, might have looked interesting short term, but long term, that was definitely not the best move. So they'll win round 2. But now you see it's 10 cards to 9 cards, so we have card advantage and double laissez. We did draw into Erland, so we definitely want to get rid of him. And then we really shouldn't use this last mulligan, otherwise we risk accidentally drawing into and bricking Melitele. We do have at least a few cards here that are higher provisions, so it's not as if we are working with entirely just 4 provision cost cards, which would sometimes be the weakness of a deck like this, where you have a lot of 4 provision cost cards. So if you're drawing into all of those in round 3, then in a short round, they don't have much time to evolve. That is potentially a handicap. Alright, they start with Sarthisius. And, we do have at least that bear. Oh no, even better still, getting the Assimilate. That was incredible value. Okay, technically speaking, we have a few ways to do something very similar. We could either get really good value out of 5 provisions using Experimental Remedy to create the same card, or we could go with Cadaverin, which also creates an Imperial Diviner on our side of the board. This is a 7 provision cost card, whereas this is a 5 provision cost card, so this is going to become more powerful more quickly. However, this does put poison on you, which may mean we can remove you later if we find other sources of poison later on. I think I'm still going to use this, though. I think I'm still going to go that route. Now, this would actually be a really good card for them to steal with their leader ability, and I imagine they may be thinking about doing that. They technically could still wait a little bit, because they can steal all the way up to 8. Or they'll just destroy it. That, I suppose, works too. Alright, so they are off to a very strong start here. Bloody Baron is very interesting, because it threatens to reset that Diviner. But tell you what, I think there's a very obvious alternative. I think we'll take Blizzard. Okay, they'll go Dandelion. I mean, we could potentially go Dandelion as well. Reynard, it's early enough in the round that that is going to give them pretty solid value. Out of curiosity, Necromancy. We had Doomed on that, yeah, that Diviner that we just got, so can't get it back out with Necromancy, unfortunately. Dandelion is a little bit risky here, although in some ways he looks like he's just 4 bonus points. If we do find ourselves drawing into Melitele or Erland, that's an issue. If we draw into Radovid, we could just proceed to play him, but with just 1 leader ability charge, we can't really put whatever other one we get back into our deck. So that is, if it is one of those big cards, that is potentially an issue. So, for that reason, we also can't use Mata. I think we might be looking at a melee row Axel with the Rhizome. Okay, Kira, they don't need to use her immediately. She only has 1 card next to her right now. Alright, so... oh, yeah, do we have alchemy cards? I doubt it, right? We did create several Imperial Diviners in our deck. So there's all the more reason why we would like to get Erland out in this round, because we have set ourselves up a little bit more than we might have otherwise been able to do. Jacques is probably the play here. Yeah, I think so. Let's do this. Not only is he solid value, 10 points, wide points at that, which might be a little bit better, but he was 12 provision, so if we didn't play him, we were likely going to get in trouble. Priscilla, they're just going all-out Northern Realms here. And they are getting very close to hitting the Grace number. Okay. Oh, man. This hand is amazing. For more reasons than are immediately apparent. Round 3, She Who Knows. Obviously, the resilience doesn't matter, even if we do reach Sabbath. That means Old Spirit Tip is 2 points better. That is really solid at 12 points. However, leader ability into Radovid and then putting Roach back into our deck means we get 4 free points from Roach, which, when you add Radovid to the equation, is roughly the same value, but we are going to do Radovid at some point anyway. So I think we just assume that we wait to play Radovid until a turn when we have worse stuff. We obviously need to make sure that we have time to use him. Oh. Oh. More very interesting options. Very, very interesting options. That grace ability is not going to go away, even if we are going to use Ivar here. Technically, yeah, I mean, he is going to go higher. Obviously, we can't wait to play Ivar on a later turn. That is very solid. It's a free Radovid. Oh my god. Our hands, past several hands have been fantastic. But that has not made it easy to choose what we ought to do here. Because that is -7 for them, +7 for us. For what, a 14 plus, so 14 plus 5, so 19-point play. Extra Radovid means extra Meliteles and Erlands, which is not insignificant. How does that all add up? I don't know. Torres is also potentially amazing. And that even makes Erland stronger. Man. Oh, this is so difficult. I think Ivar is big enough. I think Ivar is big enough that we ought to do this. But that is not an easy choice. The fact that they are both 12s is terrifying, though. Okay, Unseen Elder, do they have Devotion? I feel like we might have seen at one point that they didn't, but I could be wrong about that. Okay, they don't. Good. So, Range Rover and a Seal is very solid. We don't have anything that has poison on their side, do we? No. Okay. So I think we do this, and that means we are going to be pretty pressed for time when it comes to Radovid. He's pretty much going to need to be next turn. This is going to be 5 provisions, so that's not going to be great anyway. It's going to be 12. That's going to be 12 as well. Okay, it's Primordial Dow, solid point slam. They're waiting to use Reynard until basically their last turn to get as much value as possible out of that. Raucous Venom is not terrible here, but we kind of sort of need to use Radovid now, don't we? Because Erland needs to be second to last turn, so we have time to use him. And we also can't do Radovid on our last turn because we need time to use his order as well. So somebody's on this turn here. I guess Radovid technically could be on our next turn, but if so, it means that this is Erland. So I think we actually go Radovid, or go Erland. No, but we can't do Erland first because we only have one charge of Pincer maneuver. Okay, it has to be Radovid. Put you back, I guess. Go for Radovid. This is going to, I imagine, get someone with their leader ability, is the downside. Which is why I would have loved if we could have afforded to have gone Erland this turn, but again, that would have used our last leader ability charge, so we couldn't. Alright, it's Letitia. That's not great. Not on their last turn. They'll use their leader ability on Radovid, understandably, and also, did they use Reynard previously? Pretty sure you can still use him, even after he gets reset below 12. Maybe I just missed it. Okay, so now do they have any? They have Vitality that's still going to be kicking in a little bit here. We, with this last one, would like to use Erland because we put extra units in our deck, so that should still be quite effective. Range Row Kelly obviously is not bad here. We, I believe, have more units than them, or it's pretty close, so this would probably backfire if we went melee row. But we do need the time to use the order ability there on Erland. If we had the extra leader ability charge, we should put you back. If we had the extra leader ability charge, then we could have also just gotten Melitele out here and put her back into our deck, and in doing so, gotten some solid value out of that in all likelihood. But again, with them stealing Radovid, that basically made that impossible. So, ooh, Offering to the Sea is not very useful for us. By that I mean it is pretty terrible. So this is mostly up to Erland. We might not have this. I kind of don't think we have this. Well, no, they have enough units on the board. I think we'll still be fine. We'll have enough damage, I think. Oh, okay. Okay, the bleed takes effect, but we just barely hold on for the win. Alright, so going up against Nilfgaard here. And we'll go first. Alright, so let's put Best Boy back into our deck. And then would like to keep Margarita in deck if possible. Okay, so I think we will settle for this in that case. Okay, so early on, we'd of course like to get some engines here. There's potentially some value from Siren, but that is pretty speculative. Griffin Witcher Mentor might even help us to set up Melitele, but that is not all that likely. Svalbard Priest is probably the most reliable engine here. Viper Witcher Alchemist, dice roll, but could end up being decent. Smuggler doesn't really the setup we're looking for. Don't have the coins for Shady Vendor, and the Skirmisher we don't really have the setup for either. So it's probably one of these two. Maybe we'll try the Mentor. It's a little bit riskier, but see what happens. Well, it is perfect. That is exactly what we wanted. Okay, they'll go with Apiarian Phantom. That is an engine. Solid first turn. We do have just enough damage to destroy it with the Mastercrafted Spear if we would like to, which is a little bit tempting because this currently is a 6-point play. If you look, or 5-ish point play if you look at it right now, but of course it has 3 damage on the order building. It's going to continue to get bigger if we don't take it out now. We can't lock it because it has Veil, so that still feels like that is probably the right move. Or similarly, we could use Trial of Grasses on it. That would also work, I mean, for what it's worth. Trial of Grasses on that Griffin Witcher Mentor is also not a bad play, but we'll keep it simple here. We'll take out their engine rather than building up a big card for us in case they have something like Tall Removal going forward. Okay, well, does mean they have a target for Vigo's Muzzle. Then we could go... Herkia is an engine, still fairly early in the round, so that's decent value. Or we could go for Axel 3 Eyes Melee Rare. Recently reworked, now would give us Crow Eye Rhizome, which is, I think, if we put it in the same row as Axel, is 11 points for 7 provisions, which is pretty good. Kinda hard to beat that value. Oh, we have 2 Axels. Alright. Or, yeah, Herkia would have to last several turns. So maybe we go with a safer bet and go Axel here. Also gets Roach out. And Best Boy. Okay, Vandergrift for the carryover is unfortunate. Okay. Reynard is looking like the obvious play here, I'm thinking. Still, it's not super early, but we should have enough time to get at least decent value out of him. Okay, Tin Boy, we do have a fair number of cards in that melee row, so that is good value for them, for sure. We could consider using Vilgefortz on Vandergriff, not only to get rid of a 6-power unit, I mean, who knows what will come out to replace it, but get rid of the resilience, which is, of course, denying them the carryover, which could be useful. Otherwise, not much in the way of great setup. This would be an 8-point play, which is potentially a little better, or Ciri is the safe bet, I suppose. Although they could imposter her, which would be unfortunate. I think we'll try Vilgefortz here. Bit of a risk. Okay, they did gain points from it. They did gain points from it, technically speaking, which is unfortunate, but as we were saying, it was the resilience, getting rid of that was the primary reason why we wanted to do it. Although, granted, now we got Vincent on our next turn, which could have outright removed that card. We had no way of knowing that, of course, at the time, so be it. Okay, Professor on what? Interesting. I would argue that's the wrong play. They could have triggered the bounty if they'd used it on Roach. Would have thought, or better still, used it on Axel for slightly more coinage. I guess slightly less damage, but... Alright, we do have some interesting options, though. Everything is... there's not enough points on the board for Igni, right? No. Ciri dash Very powerful. Very unlikely we have enough time for her to trigger, though. Shiru at 3 power hurts us more than it hurts them, so definitely not. Vincent could be worth 8 points here. That's probably not as good as Rune Mage. I think Rune Mage is the answer. And at this point, they have engines. Maybe we go looking for Assimilate, if possible. This does not have Assimilate anymore. Do they have a good bronze we could steal? I mean, it's a +1 point play. They have something big enough for us to hit with that? Yes, they do. Yennefer Illusionist. That is definitely quite good. Highest card on the board might now belong to us since we've damaged Aguara. We have a 6. They have a 6. Yeah. Okay, so that's not really the right play. Saris range row is not out of the question, but Gerard is better, I think. It definitely should be better. So we could do that. And should be enough for us to catch them, right? I think he's, what, 13 points, assuming you take Pact? I could even put that on Reynard. Does that get him up? That doesn't quite get him up to his grace number, I don't think, but gets us closer. Why don't we do that? Why don't we do this? And then I'm going to go Curse Scroll, and I'm just going to do this to get Melitele and mulligan her back out. So that will get us a Curse Knight. More value for this round, and carryover of sorts with Melitele. And it seemed like we were potentially running out of time with that stratagem. Tier on who? Okay. Not bad. We're now tied. What do they have in their graveyard? Oh. Kind of like that prospect, to tell you the truth. We do not have duplicates in our deck, though, so it might even be better still if we go for Shoop's Day Off here. Fulmar is also decent, for sure. It takes a little bit longer. I mean, Fulmar melee row could certainly get rid of the illusion. It's just a matter of, do we think this round is going to go one more turn still so we can actually click on that order ability, and that I'm not as sure about. This is the sure thing. This is the almost sure thing. This is the if we think the round is going longer thing. I'm going to go Shoop's Day Off. Gonna look for the resilience. Oh, right, and we did Rune Mage. So we have pretty darn good, if not guaranteed, chance of making this happen. And they will forfeit. Wow. So we will take the win. So there's a look at the Northern Realms Melitele Erland deck for the new Patience is a Virtue seasonal event. If you liked the video, then make sure to hit the like and subscribe button and leave a comment down below to let me know which other cards, archetypes, and factions you'd like us to experiment with next. And take a look at our other Patience is a Virtue decks that we've used as well. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you next time.